Hello and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today we are going to talk about why houseplants lose leaves. So this is something that is a little distressing, right? So you have a nice plant that's full of leaves like this one is, this pothos here, and then all of a sudden it starts to drop some leaves. So the question is, okay, why is my houseplant dropping leaves? I'm going to go through 8 different reasons why houseplants can drop leaves. Keep in mind that this could be a combination for you of various reasons. So it could be 2 or 3 of these reasons, it could be 1 of these reasons. I'm going to go through each one of them so that it will help you diagnose the issue, okay? So humidity levels are a pretty big thing with a lot of houseplants. As I mentioned in a lot of my videos, houseplants, a lot of the houseplants we grow in our indoor environments are from the jungle floors, right? So the jungle, very high humidity. 100% humidity, as a matter of fact, a lot of the times. And that being said, our homes are not that humid. Depending on where you live, if you live in Georgia, Florida, you're going to have a lot more humid home than you're going to get in other areas of the country. For the most part, if I was going to average this out, I would say there's about 40, most homes run between a 40 and a 60% humidity, usually more closer to the 40 to 50. This is a hygrometer right here, and this shows you temperature and it shows you relative humidity. Relative humidity refers to the humidity relative to the temperature, okay? So right here you'll see that my humidity level is 55%. One of the reasons why my humidity level is a little on the higher side is I am surrounded by plants. Plants, what they do is they have stomata on the underside of their leaves. That's like their sweat glands. So whereas we perspire, humans do, plants transpire. When they transpire, they emit water vapor, and that will humidify the air and it will humidify other plants, okay? So if you have like a single plant somewhere in your house, it's going to be a lower humidity probably around that plant. Also, humidity levels tend to get a lot lower in the winter months in North America, where we could where a lot of times you may be heating your home, so keep that in mind as well. That's why I would suggest getting a hygrometer. It gives you a really quick, accurate, fast way to find out what the humidity levels are in your home. And I do have a video on using the humidity, the hygrometer for humidity readings, and I'll put a link for that below as well. So humidity, improper humidity, usually it's not going to be on the higher end, it's going to be on the lower end. So the lower end, if you have real low humidity, you may have a plant that starts dropping leaves. So that's one thing to check. Second thing to check, really big thing to check, this is a real big reason for leaf drop, and that is improper lighting. As I talk about in other videos, put a link below on some of those, it's really important that your plants have the proper lighting. The plants, as I mentioned before, and I'll mention again, they are slow to react. So you can bring a plant home and it can be okay for 3 or 4 months. And you think, oh, I'm doing pretty good even though it's kind of dark in here. Well, plants have light stores. Once they use up those light stores, then what happens is, then they start to drop leaves. They will start to drop the lower leaves first, and then they keep the higher leaves. The reason they keep the higher leaves is because the higher leaves, generally speaking, are closer to a light source. And those are the only ones that are going to continue to get the plant at least a little bit of light, right? You may also find the plant leaning, exfoliating, leaning towards the light. That's another sign that your plants are not getting enough light. And they will, as mentioned, drop a bunch of leaves. Eventually, if a plant is really light starved, you're going to end up with just the leaves on the top and then the empty stem at the down into the base of the plant. So lighting, if you don't have good enough lighting coming from windows, then do use artificial lighting. Full spectrum mimics daylight, so that's what you want to use. Comes in all kinds of bulbs, You can put them in regular fixtures. They make cool fixtures that look kind of like octopus arms that you can put around your plants to give them enough light. So nowadays there's really no reason not to have enough light for your plants. Another reason, over or under watering. I have a whole root rot series and shows you what happens to a plant when you don't give them enough, when you give them too much water, which is where root rot comes from. And when you do that, the plant will start to drop leaves because the plant's dying. So what happens is the roots start to die, and then the plant essentially, which is interesting because the soil is too wet, but the plant, what happens is the roots die back. Then the roots aren't taking up enough water for the plant because they're dying back. Then the plant starts to dump leaves because the plant thinks that it is starving for water, even though the soil is really wet. So that's another reason you could be losing leaves. So check for root rot symptoms. I have a whole playlist starring Henry, and you can watch that and see how he was brought back from the brink of root rot, and shows you all the things to look for. Okay, the next reason, lack of nutrients. So this is not on the top of the list for losing leaves, but after a while, your plants, especially if you've had a plant, we all do this, I've done this, you have a plant in this pot, it's been looking good for so long, you don't think about not watering, you don't think about fertilizing it, right? You think, well, it's always so healthy and it looks so good, and you think about fertilizing it, but you don't get around to it. Well, eventually it will take up all the nutrients in that soil, because remember, it has a limited amount of soil in here. And then what'll happen is it'll start dropping leaves. The plant will start dropping leaves because it just can't sustain the rest of the plant, the whole plant as it is. So it will start to drop leaves, okay? So I do have a fertilizer product here. It's an organic fertilizer product with a lot of the macro and micronutrients. And that is really, it's organic, it's really easy. I show you in videos too about how to add it to already potted plants. So whatever you do give your plants some regular fertilizer. Okay, the next thing, temperature. So if a plant, this is generally the case, if a plant is is in too cold of an environment, I mentioned, so average temperature, I guess I didn't mention that yet, average temperatures, most homes go somewhere between 65 and 75-ish. You could be a little hotter, you could be a little cooler. If you get much lower than 60 though, a lot of houseplants will start to really not do well. They will start to drop leaves. They won't do as well in those cooler temperatures. So that's another reason. Once again, your hygrometer also has a temperature gauge on it, so you can get a really quick and fast accurate reading to know. And a lot of times it may just be moving it into a warmer area of the house, maybe into the bathroom, maybe into the kitchen, somewhere where it's a little warmer, right? So especially during the winter months, you might need to move some of your plants. Okay, another reason for leaf drop, pests. One of the big problems, the big culprits in making leaves fall off is mealybugs. I have videos on their control as well. They will get into the leaf, they get into the leaf midrib here, and then they will also get into furled leaves, and they will get at the base of leaves. When they get at the base of leaves, that's when a lot of times the leaf is going to fall off, or it's going to fall off at the base of the stem. So basically, they're eating away at the plant, and then you start to get leaf drop. So keep an eye out for that as well. Another reason is shock. So shock can happen if you drop a plant. I have a video on what to do if you drop a plant. Shock can also occur if you've moved and you move a plant into a new space. Shock can occur if you get a new plant and you bring it home. So that is another reason. One plant that loves to drop leaves when you move it is a Ficus benjamina. So it could just be some leaf drop then, is just basically it's acclimating itself to your home, and if it stops the leaf drop, then you're fine. So that's another reason. Last reason is that plants will, and it varies as to how often plants will do this, but plants will that it's normal for them to drop leaves after a time. That every leaf is not going to stay on forever. The hope is that the plant will then root out some more leaves within that area. But sometimes if a plant, especially things like pothos, get really rangy, then you're going to want to prune them back some when they start to look rangy. So sometimes the pruning is necessary when you get that leaf drop. So that is it. Those are the main reasons why your houseplant could be losing leaves. If you have any questions, as usual, please leave comments below about any particular plants. As I mentioned, some plants tend to do the leaf drop more than others. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.